And we're going to set the pattern for the breath that we're going to try to carry on throughout the practice. So just activating the diaphragm. Expansion of the midsection, gentle lifting of the rib cage, broadening through the backs of the kidneys, laterally. And the spine grows a little bit longer with each in-breath. And as we're doing this setup here, we're becoming aware now a little bit further of our experience, noticing beyond the physical, the energetic of the body, how the mind is, just sort of noticing the texture of your awareness at the moment, sort of state of your mind. In a more felt sense, so is the mind tense, is it relaxed, is it open, is it closed? Is there a lot of movement? Or does the mind feel a bit dull, sort of dropping down somewhere? Within the sort of texture of your mind, just get a sense of your actual mental state. How would you describe that? In a couple of words. Emotional state, mental state. They mix together, blend together. So just a general sense of what's going on. And we notice any associated particular feelings around these states of mind. Pleasant, unpleasant, neither one nor the other. Just aware of that in the same way that we're going to carry on being aware of that throughout the practice, in a way that's not trying to make an evaluation or a judgment, but we're open enough, receptive enough just to feel and accept the experience, whilst not clinging, whilst not pushing away. Conditioned process, nothing more than that. We'll take all of this experience, which will deepen as we practice, onto the mat. The breath, the awareness of the body, awareness of our inner state. See if we can maintain that awareness as we move through the practice. Okay, we're going to come onto the mat now, front of the mat, standing position. So coming onto the mat side on, ready for the setup for Trikonasana. And you're going to widen your feet. So taking a good stance between the feet, turning the left foot in and the right foot out. Planting your right foot down and your left foot down evenly, so that the weight's spreading between the feet and the feet are broadening laterally. Okay, so we're going to go through the practice in a more classical way tonight. We'll spend a bit more time with the details of some of the poses, not rushing. And we let the practice build up, and let the awareness build up with the practice. Okay, so this practice of asana goes along with the practice of what's known as sati bhavana, so the building up of awareness as well. Okay. Floating the arms up. Okay, and bringing the energy through the arms to the hands. So we bring alive the periphery of the body, the hands and the feet. So expanding the hands brings alive hasta bandha. Pada bandha in the feet, hasta bandha in the hands. I'm going to gently engage mulla bandha on the in-breath. So that area between the perineal floor, between the anus and the genitals, lightly lifting up Lower belly lightly lifting in, very, very lightly lifting in. Then looking out to the right side, okay, you're going to extend to the right side. So really engaging your legs, reaching out, full reach, and then take the hand down and sweep the opposite arm directly up above you. Okay. We'll be coming to a very straightforward, no fuss, classical triangle. Okay, grounding, reaching up, pressing down through the feet. And you can set your gaze where you like, depending upon how the neck is. Whether you feel it helps or not to look up, you could look up. If not, look out, look down. Main thing is to just keep this trajectory of extension through the spine, including the neck in that. Okay, so the neck, head, gently reaching out from the spinal column. Use the breath to help you maintain the posture. Build the posture up from inside through the breath, through the awareness of the pose. Engaging the body. Okay. You can soften the front knee a little if it gets too intense on the back of the leg or the heel. Find the point of balance in the pose. And then pressing down through your right foot, we're going to come up on an in-breath to the center. Arms resting down for a moment. Turn the right foot in, left foot out. Let's re-clarify that change of position with the feet. Extending the arms out to the side once again. Floating the arms up, extending out to the fingertips. Broadening laterally through the trunk. You're going to turn your gaze to the opposite side. Reach out, tucking your left hip under. And taking the hand down to support, reaching the other arm directly up above you. Okay. So if you feel you've got your legs too wide apart, you'll feel that in the talus joint, you'll feel that in the back of the heel, the Achilles. So just close the space a bit between the feet if you need to. And then just re-establish a sense of grounding and lifting. So yielding to the floor and extending. Tailbone tucking forwards and slightly. Making sure we're not throwing either the pelvis back or the chest out. So try and keep a sense of equilibrium, balance between the spine, 2 points, head, sacrum. Breathing through the pose, let the pose sustain itself through the breath. And trying to connect with the whole of the posture through the whole of the body, so everything is involved. Okay, releasing the front knee softly, press into the front foot, come up on the in-breath, floating up. Arms releasing down, turn your left foot in, right foot out, and step to the front of the mat. Take a pause for a moment. I'm looking towards the camera because my microphone's over that way, so I don't use my voice. And then step your left foot back, so we've got the right foot out, pelvis facing the short edge of the mat forwards. Again, a wide stance, but not maximum. So 3/4 of the length between the feet. Okay. So you've got the pelvis and trunk facing forwards, reach the hands forwards and around, taking the wrists or bringing the hands into reverse namaste. Okay, if you like, it's up to you. One or the other. Okay. Pressing down through the feet, you're going to lift the heart center, lift the rib cage. And then the out breath, we're going to extend forwards from the pelvis. So the legs stabilize the pose. Pelvis moves over the top of the legs and the trunk lengthens from the pelvis. Okay. So you can choose here how you want to work, whether to remain more level with the floor. That's one way of practicing. The other way of practicing is to slowly descend towards the leg, moving from the pelvis until you can't move from the pelvis anymore. Okay. So be careful of not switching the pelvis off too quickly. And to keep the work moving forwards from the pelvis, and then at some point the spine will begin to flex.
Your tension in the back of the leg. It's already quite a strong stretch to the back of the leg. So you really want to make sure you're working the thighs here to make sure the thighs are stabilizing the pelvis. Seeing if you can lengthen the back of the legs and soften the backs of the legs more. 4 more breaths here. Okay, with your next in breath, soften the front knee a little bit and press the front foot down to bring yourself back up again. Stepping forwards. And stepping back with the opposite leg. Okay. So once you've got the pelvis trunk set up, reach the hands forwards and round. Once again, take the wrists or bring the hands together. Lifting the heart center and the rib cage, press down through the feet and extend forwards. Okay. So as you're coming into the pose, you're watching where the feeling tone in the body shifts, where the sensations shift from and to. So we'll notice most tangibly what's going on in the legs, the pelvis. Rounding the feet, giving a sense of lifting through the thighs, engaging the thighs. Looking to the floor, lengthening the spine. Four more breaths. So pressing through the feet, lifting the trunk on the inhale, stepping forwards. Namaste. The palms of the hands together for a moment. And we're going to step around to the side of the mat, facing the long edge of the mat, setting up for a wide leg forward bend. Okay. Again, reaching the arms up, floating the hands parallel to the floor in the arms. Okay, this helps us to activate the bandhas and the Pala Bandha, Mula Bandha again. Hasta Bandha. Okay, keep that sense of lifting through the heart center and the chest. Bring the hands down. On the exhale, you're going to fold forwards again, activating the pelvis. Let's make sure we don't turn the pelvis off too quickly. So we keep the spine lengthening. Hands down on the floor, just under the shoulders. You're going to keep your spine lengthening for the time being. See if you can bring a bit more openness through the back of the pelvis, along the upper line and the side line of the buttocks. You're broadening the buttocks. You notice that as you do that, you get a bit of a lift from the lower belly inwards. So sort of Mula Bandha almost kind of finds itself indirectly. You hardly have to kind of think about it consciously. So the bandhas work in that way. They can work indirectly through the poses, or we can work with them principally consciously and then activate, keep them activated in that way. But they also find their own way once you've got the pose set up. Plant the right hand down on the floor beneath the chest, extend the left arm out to the side, and you're going to rotate around the spinal axis. So you're rotating, lifting the left arm up to the sky, turning your gaze to where it's comfortable to turn the head. Okay. And give an awareness in the gaze, so what you're looking at internally, what you're looking at externally. Balancing your awareness between the inside of what's going on in the sensations of the body and your environment that you're working in. Okay, release that hand down, switch to the other side. One smooth movement. Keep the awareness in the legs, activating the thighs, grounding the feet. broadening the pelvis. And then once again, switching to the other side. Right hand comes down, left hand lifts up, rotating around the axis of the spine. We allow the pelvis to swivel under as well. So whilst the primary movement comes through the trunk, the pelvis will also swivel, allowing a little bit more of a turn through the trunk. Once again, changing, left hand down, right hand extends up for the last time. Grounding the feet. And then bring the hands down to where they were in the primary position, just beneath the shoulders. Now you're going to begin your descent. So let the crown of the head move towards the floor. Trunk moves in towards the legs. And we just take ourselves as far into that pose as seems reasonable, okay? Don't force the pace. Keep broadening through the pelvis. Definitely helps you to rotate around the tops of the thighs. Yeah? Hands down, head down. So we let the pose turn itself into an inversion now. And the upper body can be more relaxed. We keep the lower body active through the legs. Engaging the legs. Spine relaxed and lengthening. Crown of the head down. Okay, lifting your head, walking the hands forward, soften the knees a little to come up, so standing again. Arms broadening out to the side. I'm going to step back to the front of the mat again. Okay, so we're going to practice tree pose. You can stay standing at the front of your mat. I'm turning side on just so that I can see what's going on. Okay. Or as you like, you can come to the mat and so you can see me. Up to you. Taking the weight into the support of the left leg, bring up your right heel. Place your right heel inside the left inner groin. Left thigh, okay. So we know that we need to bring some pressure of the foot into the leg back into the foot. It's like a mutual pressing into the center midline of the body. This gives us a bit more balance, okay. Lifting the heart center, lifting the spine. Bring the palms of the hands together at the heart center. Keep a sense of focus through both the posture and the gaze. And then we're going to reach up gradually, lengthening through the whole trunk, through the arms, palms together or palms apart. Just so we can maintain the balance for 10 breaths. Becoming steadier in the pose with each breath. Good. Okay, releasing the arms out to the side, broadening through the chest and through the upper back. Palms of the hands turned upwards. And then releasing the foot down.
Okay, arms down just for a second, bring the opposite foot up, we're going to transition straight into the other side. Okay, stability in the standing leg, so be firm in the standing leg, really root down physically and imaginatively. Put the roots down, bring the palms of the hands together, elbows wide, so that you encourage the sense of laterally broadening through the trunk. You don't want to collapse in the upper body, so there's a sense of breadth and length. Axial extension through the spine. And just see if you need to make small adjustments to find your balance. You might mean pressing the heel in a little bit more and turning the toes down and back slightly. Might just give you a bit more stability. So the little adjustments you make just to help the body find its balance with the feet, mainly with the feet. Okay, reaching up to the sky, palms together or not. Axial extension, rooting down. Let the breath feed the posture. So we're going to maintain this for 10 breaths. And separating the hands, bring the arms out to the side. For a moment, palms up. Broadening through the body. And release the foot down, arms down. Good practice. Okay, so we don't need to go anywhere. We can just bring our feet together. And then we're going to sit down, as it were, Utkatasana. So we're going to bend the knees, bring the front of the pelvis up, so the tailbone tucks under. So it's often counterintuitive, this, because you want to go the other way with the pelvis, but you want to think about bringing the tailbone under. Bring the hands together and raise the hands above your head. You can separate the hands if you want to, if it seems easier to maintain the breath. Okay, then just find the depth of squat that suits you. Okay, so don't go too far so that you can't breathe. Same time, give yourself a bit of a challenge to strengthen around the pelvis and the legs. Gazing up if you wish, looking forwards, it's up to you. Okay, I'm going to fold all the way forward as if diving off the top of a building. Okay, down to Uttanasana. From there, walking the feet back, I'd like you to come into child pose for a moment. Head down on the floor. Whatever version of child pose you want to take, it's fine. Okay, if you place your hands down just beneath your shoulders and press yourself up. So what you've set up with the legs now, if you just gather your legs in a bit more, bring them in and press them in together slightly, we come into more like Virasana. Draw the tailbone back or the buttocks back a little bit. And bring the hands onto the knees with the arms straight, the elbows facing in towards each other. So the inside of the elbow looking in towards each other. And the hands are spreading apart. So the hands are broad, fingertips lifting. Okay. And just for 5 breaths, we're going to work with keeping the lower part of the abdominal area drawn back in. So we're going to breathe in
the breath that we tend to use for remedial practice, sometimes known as the Mula Bandha inhale. We're going to use that for 5 breaths, okay, 5 cycles. So it's a gentle contraction of the lower belly, very simple. We look for the feeling sense of this breath around the back. It exhibits itself as a broadening through the kidney area, and it's like lifting of the spine. And come back to the smoother, softer downward, diaphragmatic breathing. Downward facing dog is the next pose. Mixing one thing with another. So broaden your hands, keep the breath through the hands, place the hands down, tuck your toes under, lift the pelvis, long legs, long spine. Crown of the head extending itself towards the hands. So we keep the neck long. Okay, shifting your weight forwards, come onto the knees, bring your feet in front of you and your legs in front of you. We're going to lie down. So we're going to be moving a bit between lying, sitting, and back work now. So for now, we're going to lie down. I'm going to come into a classical reclining twist. Okay, so bringing the knees together. Into the semi-supine position. Arms broadening and out to the side. Okay. And we make this small adjustment with the pelvis, whereby we lift up the pelvis and take it, in this case, to the left side a little way, and then bring the legs together to the right side, okay? All the way to the floor, turning the head to the opposite direction. So legs to the right, gaze to the left. And we're going to bring the right hand onto the outside of the left leg, just to weigh down the legs a little bit more, right? Really rooting the shoulders. Keeping a sense of the shoulders as grounded the whole time. Five more breaths here. And then bringing the legs up to the center. Make the small adjustment of the pelvis to the right side. Let the legs, one smooth movement, roll over to the left side. Again, if you want, you can take the left hand onto the outside of the right leg. Just to weigh down the legs a little bit more, looking upwards or looking out to the right side with the gaze. Rounding the shoulders. Really get a sense of rooting the upper back to the floor as much as you can. So we're really emphasizing taking the lumbar spine with us and allowing the thoracic spine to do the work of rotating, okay? So isolating the thoracic spine. Long, smooth breath. Working with the diaphragm. Very good. Okay, rolling all the way over to the right side now. So if you just roll your whole body to the right side, and then you want to come around so that you're lying on the front of your body. Okay, we're going to move into the prone position. Hands set back towards the lower part of the ribs and the elbows in. Okay, so setting up for Bhujangasana, we want the hands to come back to the lower part of the ribs, keeping the elbows tucked into the sides of the body. As they say here, abrazando. So you're hugging almost the side of your body with your elbows. Hands planted down. For a moment, extend into the legs and bring the forehead down to the floor. And then 5 times on the in-breath, we're going to lift the head, chest, and shoulders. One smooth movement. Okay, keeping the lower ribs down on the floor. Okay, so you're just lifting the head, chest. Exhale, releasing the head down. All the while, you're keeping the legs extended to the feet. So there's a sense of which the feet are moving backwards and down to the floor. The energy of the legs backwards and down to the floor as the chest and head lift. Okay. Keep a slow movement, but work with the breath, so you're not straining the breath or holding the breath. Now lifting and holding the pose for another 5 breaths. Okay, so we're going to see if we can maintain the lift. Keep the action of the legs extending back to the feet. And then release yourself down on the floor for a moment. You can bring the hands up to the head if you like, on the floor, under the head, not on the head. I just rest the head to one side and open the feet for a moment. So we'll take a pause. Okay, here we're going to do a adapted version of the scorpion. So we're going to bring the arms down by the side of the body, palms of the hands facing down. The hands come down to the tops of the legs. Okay. We're going to release the forehead down on the floor, and we're going to lift one leg at a time alternately. So once the head is down, you're going to lift, rest down, lift, rest down. I'm going to do this 10 times on each side, okay? So there's an adaptation of a classical pose whereby you would support the pelvis and lift both legs, but we're just going to alternate this and change it slightly. Okay, so chin down or forehead down as you choose. Just work at your own pace on that, okay? Okay, taking a pause for a moment. And bringing the hands into the lower ribs again by the side of the body. Tuck your toes under. You're going to press yourself back into downward facing dog from here. Okay, shifting the weight forwards, come into the high plank position. Hands arranged underneath the shoulders. The trunk is long, the gaze down to the floor. So we're making a kind of tabletop out of the back of the body. Pelvis lifted, midsection engaged to keep the lift in the pelvis. And the thighs are engaged as well, okay? So the whole body is long. You're lengthening through the whole length of the body, all the postural muscles, strengthened and toned, balanced on both sides. Knees down, trunk down. We're going to slide the hands forwards in front of us, interlocking the fingers, although you can't see that on your screens. That's what I'm doing. Bringing the feet together. This time we're going to lengthen from the pelvis through the legs to the feet and from the trunk through the shoulders to the hands and lift both at the same time, okay? So we're going into a full lift, pivoting on the pelvic bone, on the pubic bone virtually, okay? So when you're ready, you're going to lift, looking forwards. Oh yeah, okay. Release down for a moment. We'll do this a couple of times, okay? Demanding pose. Once again, interlock the fingers and slide the hands forward in front of you, or just interlock the thumbs if you don't want to interlock the fingers. Okay, lengthening from the pelvis in both directions, through the trunk, through the legs, and lifting simultaneously. Okay, and release down. Place the hands by the side of your trunk, lower ribs, press up again into downward facing dog. One smooth movement. Okay, and from here, so we're going to come into the pigeon, the paloma. We're going to slide the right knee forwards in front of us as far as we can. Okay, and you know that you can intensify this or de-intensify it depending upon where you place the foot. So bringing the foot out more is going to intensify the work in the hip, okay? So find the point where you're not overstretching, but you're certainly not just sitting in your comfort zone either, okay? So bring the foot out enough so that you can feel the challenge there. Placing the hands just beneath the shoulders, okay? You're going to let the rib cage float up. The pelvis draws down at the same time. So the weight of the pelvic bone draws itself down anyway. And then we let the rib cage float up with a little bit of help by pressing through the hands to the floor. Okay. And then we're going to work on extending through the straight leg backwards. So all of this should give us something of an even curve through the spine without feeling like we're pinching anywhere in the spinal column. So gazing forwards, resting the gaze, relaxing the face, relaxing the jaw, especially. Seeing if you can drop down a bit further still through the pelvis. Keep the rib cage floating up from the base ribs. Another 5 breaths. Okay, releasing the head down, keeping the weight through the hands as you're going to press back into downward facing dog again. One smooth movement. And then we project our left knee forwards. So we slide forwards with our left knee. Right leg goes back. Same process. Okay, so we're going to let the pelvic weight draw itself down, floating from the lower ribs, the floating ribs moving upwards. So there's a sense of expansion through the rib cage and through the chest in this pose. Okay. And there are more intensive forms of this practice, which we'll probably get onto at some stage. But for tonight, we'll keep it at an intermediate level. Extending back gently through the leg, lowering the pelvis down, and bringing the shoulders back and down, opening the heart center. Gazing inwardly, gazing externally. So inwardly in terms of being aware of the sensations that are most obvious, the state of the pose in the body, but also the state of the mind. All right, releasing down again. Turn one more time to downward facing dog. And then we're going to bring our legs in front of us and extend them straight out from there. So coming into preparation for some forward bending, starting off with Dandasana. So taking the hands down onto the floor, slide them back a little way beyond your pelvis. Okay. So there's that sense of which your pelvis is tipping forward slightly and the spine's tipping forward slightly as well. Okay. Elongating the spine, lengthening the legs. Lower ribs are floating away from the top of the pelvis, and the kidneys are broadening laterally. So there's an opening here, gently lifting here. Looking forwards, relaxing the gaze, relaxing the jaw and the face. Projecting gently through the heels, through the balls of the feet. So really important to keep the periphery of the body engaged in our posture work. Okay, with all of this set up, just want you now to slide the right heel inside the left thigh, as high up as you can. So we're going to come into Janu Shishasana. Extending the arms up to the sky. We're going to reach forwards and take whatever we can take. So it depends upon the length of your arms a little bit. You'll either take your ankles or your shins or the outside of your feet, whatever it takes to arrive at that point. And before dropping forwards into the pose more deeply, first of all, I just want you to re-clarify the sense of length in your spine. Okay, so before taking this into that sort of default position, dropping the head down, first of all, kidneys in and spine lengthening. And then from there, we're going to come forwards, moving from the pelvis to the extent that we can move from the pelvis. Keeping the gaze towards the foot so we don't drop the head down. Sense of the size of the body lengthening. Pelvis grounding. And the elbows slightly apart so that they're broadening out to the side rather. So we're encouraging at least the sense of openness in the chest. Okay, so we try to avoid closing in as we come into the pose through the upper body. Breathing, let the breath sustain the pose. See if you can soften around the hard points in the body. Okay, we come up on an inhalation. Try not to lose everything we've gained so far in the length of the spine. And swap over directly to the other side. On an in-breath, lengthen up again. Come forwards and take hold of the same that you took hold of on the other side. Really clarify the length again. So it's a sense of lifting up, okay? Broadening through the spine, lengthening axially. Ribs lifting away from the top of the pelvis. And then tilting forwards from the pelvis, the extent you can do that from the pelvis. Gazing forwards. And again, softening around the hard points in the pose, using the breath, diaphragmatic breath. Good. Inhale and lifting the head, so the head lifts the spine up straight. All the way up. Good. Now the feet, we're going to take them around the back. So a little bit of vinyasa. And then we're going to bring ourselves back again into downward facing dog. I know I said one last time, but this is the one last time. All right, and then we're going to bring the right knee forwards again, as if going into pigeon, but we're not going to go into pigeon. We're going to set up for Gomukhasana. So we bring our left thigh tightly in behind the right thigh. Okay, so this is one way of coming into the posture. There are a few ways of doing this. Personally, I don't like coming in from a seated position. Don't find that very efficacious. Okay, so I like to set up this way first by bringing the legs really firmly together, and then walk the feet out to the side. Walk them or move them out to the side to the extent I can do that. And then move back and sit down, okay? So that's quite demanding. Certainly not really going to be something accessible for most beginners in that kind of way. But we're not all beginners here, so that's why we're doing it this way. And then we're just going to spend a few moments here breathing. What's good about this pose is it sort of gathers everything into the center midline. It feels like it brings everything into the center midline. Okay, both in terms of awareness and the energetics of the pose. It's very centering, gathering up through the pelvis, through the spine. So the hands resting on the legs initially, just for 5 breaths. Each out breath, seeing if you can let the weight of the pelvis drop down just a little bit more and find just a little bit more length in the spine on the in-breath. Just a little bit. Talking about subtle refinement. Still point, let the mind settle a bit more. So we're encouraging the sense of the mind, letting go of the movement, coming into stillness.
Okay, bringing the arms out to the side, we're going to sweep up with the right arm, left arm comes behind. And to practice the more classical form of Bodhiyoga-20, bringing the hands together. Obviously, I should have said bring a belt if you need a belt, but if not. So clasping, but not grasping. So, okay, you want to clasp the fingertips or the hands, keeping the spine long and doing what's necessary to allow the neck to remain long as well. So keep the trajectory of the spine lengthening up. Gazing forwards, centered in the pose. All right, releasing the arms, coming forwards. So I like to push myself from the hand behind to get the lift up there. And then unfold. And then just cross over. So we're going to change position from here, bringing the other leg behind us, closing the thighs, opening the feet and sitting back. You might find we've got more facility to move on one side than the other. So if you're working with particular problems in tight areas in one side of the body, you obviously need to do both, work on both sides of the body, never work on just one side, okay? So keep your practice bilateral. And in some ways, it's better to work on the side that's okay first, and then work on the tight side after. So there's a direct relational connection between both sides of the body neurologically. Okay, hands on the knees, another 5 breaths, just centering. And then extending the arms out. So the opposite arm this time, right arm elevates, left arm behind. Doing what we can to clasp. You might find you've got so much easier job of getting the hands together on one side than the other. But that just shows you how the body is, doesn't it? It's asymmetrically conditioned. Upper elbow extending up gently, lower elbow extending down gently. And doing what's necessary to be able to keep the head in a balanced position so you can keep the head lengthened. Okay, very good. Releasing the arms. Probably you could stay there longer. I'm setting the pace a little bit faster than perhaps you might do yourself. Then we're going to sit down now and bring the feet together in front of us, coming to butterfly. Or Baddha Konasana, cobbler pose. Taking hold of the underside of the feet. So a really classical pose this. One that's more derived from a particular form of manual labor than anything else. I'm not sure we find it in the Hatha Yoga Pradikapa, maybe we do. But anyway, it's a really good pose. I like to do this both sitting and lying down for quite a long time, usually. But sometimes I use it against the wall. So in the course, we teach a number of variations of how to do this pose. With support against the wall or not.
So again, principle here is to keep the spine lengthening, ribs floating away from the pelvis. And you let your knees fall out, okay? It's not forcing the knees to the floor. You can do this with weights on your knees and things, but you tend not to do that. So just let gravity do the work with the legs. Another 7 breaths. Okay, from here, we're going to switch into our next pose. The next few poses, we're going to do a bit like a mandala, a mala. We're going to come into a half navasana, bringing the knees together, lifting the lower legs and extending, switch around, the hands forwards, or keeping the hands behind the thighs. Okay, and we want to work to keep the spine lengthening. And if you want to come into more classical navasana, you're welcome to. If you want to extend legs forwards, once you've got your balance, arms forwards, you can do that as well, okay? But if you don't want to do the whole classical pose, then just keep yourself supported, knees bent, chest lifted. Find the balance through the breath. All right, knees down. From here, we're going to bring the right heel underneath. So we're preparing for a seated twist. Okay. And then bring in the left heel over the right leg. Okay. Extending up through the left arm and turning to the right side. The left side. Rotating. Okay. From here, we just might want to hug the knee with the forearm, or just keep the hand there. It's up to you. Okay. And really ground the trunk, lift the spine. It's the same principle, grounding the pelvis, ribs floating away from the pelvis, and rotate through the heart center. Turning the head to the other side. So looking back, gently on the neck, more work into the thoracic area. Okay, one smooth movement, fully aware, changing to the other side. Okay, turning back to the center. So 2 more things to do, but from the floor, lying down. So we're going to come into another twist, reclining twist. Lying down, we're going to straighten out the right leg, okay, and then we'll turn the left knee over to the right side with the left arm extending out to the left side, okay. So the right leg nice and straight, extending down to the toes, and the left leg comes over. You can move the left foot away from the right shin. Okay. Grounding the shoulders as before. Turning the gaze, if you've got space in your neck, turning the gaze to the left side, but if not, just keep the gaze looking upwards. It's up to you. Okay, and carefully, smoothly make a transition to the other side. The left leg extended down and the right knee coming over to the left side. Right arm extending out to the side. And of course, you use the arms. So the left arm will weigh down on the right leg to help me keep the rotational movement in the twist. Okay, and unwind yourself and come back to the semi-supine position. From semi-supine position, one of the last things we're going to do now is the bridge pose. So we'll come into the classical bridge pose, supported, and sustain that for 10 breaths. So having the heels beneath the knees, arms down by the side of the body. Okay. Just centering yourself first of all. And then lifting the pelvis, drawing the pelvis up, pressing down through the feet. And lifting the chest towards the chin, moving the chin away from the chest. And then walking the shoulder blades in and under the body a bit more, just to clarify the sense of lifting the heart center. Keeping the shape of the neck, the cervical curve stays there. And then lifting gently to your maximum. Okay, releasing all the way down. I'd like you to come briefly into Shavasana, just lengthening the limbs out in all directions. Take a pause there for 10 breaths. I'd like you to come into a seated position now. And yeah, of course, we'd encourage you to do more of that after the session. Make sure you get some time to go into the neutral mode. Shavasana for 10 minutes or so is always a good idea, if not longer. So with a little bit of time we've got left, I think we'll just do an open session of just sitting. And of course, you're very welcome to carry on practicing for as long as you want, okay? And because it's already 1:15, we'll go on to 1/2 but you're free to carry on or stop. Or as usual, I won't say anything, I'll just stop the session, okay? Come back to the sensation of the breath as being purifying and cleansing, cooling and expansive. So now the body breathing without the use of diaphragmatic breath, controlled diaphragmatic breath rather. Just let the body breathe as it needs to breathe. Cooling and calming, expansive and cleansing. Calmly observing yourself in the practice through awareness of the body, and then your experience as it arises within your mind, within the body. So in the practice of just sitting, we try to, rather than remain objective bystanders, we're just experiencing. The key thing is to experience without a particular impulse towards the experience, and neither grasping or following, neither wanting more, and neither trying to push away the uncomfortable stuff. Grounding ourselves in our actual experience as it is. If your mind tries to do something with your thoughts or with your emotions, just encourage the mind to let go. Let go, mind, just let it go for now. Just let the experiences arise, let them fade away to wherever they came from.